Metaphor ReFantasio does a phenomenal job at showing why there must be a separation between church and state. Because the Sanctist Church is 100% without a doubt one of the most wicked and evil institutions created in the world of Metaphor ReFantasio. But it's how their wickedness is allowed to permeate society that truly makes them vile. Because everything the Sanctist Church does, regardless of how awful it is, can be justified if they use their faith as an excuse as to why it is allowed to happen. Because sanctism is the state religion, anyone who openly opposes what the Sanctist Church wants to do will be labeled as a blasphemer, someone against the state religion, a heretic, if all because they've given people something to believe in. They've given them something to place their anxieties and worries in. This has led to them having an unregulated amount of power in Uchronia, the kind of unregulated power that allows them to build a grand cathedral upon sacred grounds that was meant for the Holy Family, the largest structure in the capital city of Grand Trad, making the statement that sanctism is above the royal family. The kind of unregulated power where they can encourage people to go to indigenous lands and steal the relics and sacred treasures of the natives there, all under the lie that those relics belong to the Sanctist Church in the first place. The kind of unregulated power that allows them to rig a tournament for who gets to be the next king when it should be up to the people to decide. Mind you, they have an entire company solely operating under their watch, with their purpose being to sell weapons of magical mass destruction to anyone. For people who don't want or can't afford those magical weapons, their entire villages would be burned to the ground. The Sanctist Church is backed by royalty that stems generations before the current Sanctifex was even put into position. The current sitting prince of the royalty that supports the Sanctist Church might have had a hand in the reason why the current leader is elected. And the church has openly stated once they are in power, they will do everything they can to rid the world of Sanctism's enemies, which would include several of the minority tribes, which includes the Elder, the Mustari, and they continue to enforce the race-based hierarchy that exists within the world of Metaphor ReFantasio, which would allow them to continue using Parapus for their magic igniter experiments. And they've said all of this out loud. And they could say they're doing this in the name of sanctism, and that's the problem. The church and gods should not lead a nation. The people should. Magic is a very important thing in the world of metaphor because it's not just a force that our heroes and heroines can access to use this awesome power. It's the reason why the world exists in the way it does. Magic is the reason for all of the technological marvels in the world of metaphor. Magic is the reason the world is brimming with people and places. Magic is the reason why wonderful things like music even exist. Thus, magic, and by extension Magla, are something worth understanding. What is it? Where did it come from? Does anyone else have access to it? What can it tell us about the world? You know, normal questions anyone would ask about a resource this impactful. That's why I believe that the Mage Academy is the most important area in metaphor, because it was a place established to study these very things. It existed to study magic and maybe use those answers to help make the world a better place for everybody. If you've played the game, then you know that the Mage Academy met a very violent end, and it was at the hands of none other than Sanctifex Fortin and the Crown Theocracy's warrior monk army. There was official documentation and records stating that the reason that the war was waged on the Academy in the first place was because their research was going to lead to a rebellion. There were even worries about the Academy being in possession of a dragon of mass destruction without the kingdom's authorization to even have it. But that's the story they told people. What really went down is that Fortin wanted to keep the Sanctus-dominated society as it currently is. He wanted the history of the world that they have cemented as truth to remain unchallenged. He wanted the way magic was used to be something he and the Crown Theocracy had control over. When Fortin's men arrive at the Academy, there isn't this big bloody battle that ensues. Fortin's men just go and destroy a bunch of artifacts that the mages were studying. And that dragon of mass destruction started to freak out at the sight of these magical artifacts being destroyed and went on a bloody rampage, killing damn near everybody that was there. So many lives were lost over magic, a natural resource. I know I've been super hard on the Sanctist Church in Metaphor ReFantasio, rightfully so, because they suck. But Rella Cygnus kind of makes me rethink all of that and where to direct my actual frustration. Because Rella is everything that I think we strive to be. She's kind, she's generous, she's charitable, she's caring, and those aspects of herself that she puts out there aren't up for grabs by the highest bidder or something she lends out to people with power, but she shares those things with the powerless. And when you're powerless, life lives in uncertainty for you. What's my life's purpose? What do I believe in? How do I live? These are questions all stemming from this place inside of us that's terrified of the uncertainty of this world. If you're someone with power and ambition, you could fully rely on yourself to get things done, but that's just not how most people are. In a society that cares about power, who's going to look after the weak? Who's going to be the person that the weak can rely on? It's not some religious organization that can provide you a place of belonging, and it's not someone who will only acknowledge your existence because you have power. The real answer is someone who values your life, and that's why Rella's dope. What exactly is the Senate and the Crown theocracy's goal and metaphor? It's the same thing it is every time, and that's trying to take over the world. But there's a little bit more to it. To understand their intentions, we need to know three things. One, metaphor takes place in a post-apocalyptic version of our world where humans discovered magic, using it to wage war on one another, which eventually led to the destruction of humanity as we know it. A lot of the humans that survived the magical war were then mutated by the magical force that was now present in the world, and that's how we came up with the 9 tribes. Number two is that magic comes from people's anxieties. And three, the one who wields the royal scepter is able to draw upon power from the anxieties of everyone in the kingdom, granting them immeasurable power. Now here's why this is all important. Amongst the denizens of Uchronia, there is a tribe known as the Roigs, people who are essentially blessed with longevity. And just like real life, seniority means something to the people of Uchronia. I feel as if we always tend to appreciate the wisdom that comes from people who've lived from a time that we were not a part of. But with that comes issues. In a post-apocalyptic world like Uchronia, the rogues had probably the first-hand experience of seeing and remembering what exactly went down and what life was like after the war. They were able to perceive the dangers of unchecked magic. And with witnessing those things firsthand, it's understandable that they would be the ones to implement a system to try to regulate magic in some way, shape, or form. And that's how we end up with things like the magical igniter. Sanctism was created for this very reason, as a means to alleviate the people's anxieties lest they turn into monsters, but also giving them something to rely on, which would in turn combat the building anxiety of the masses. But once that wisdom that was once there to help people is muddied with bias, prejudice, greed, anxiety, we end up with people like Forden, people like the Prince of Monterio, whose aims are more about controlling the people rather than providing safety for them, whose motivations lie within some petty plot to take over the throne because they lost the Annex War and were forced to assimilate into the Kingdom of Uchronia. Mind you, this is a nation that refuses to properly honor their dead soldiers who fought hard for the Monterio Kingdom. Once Monterio was lost, they were forced to integrate with the rest of Uchronia. And what Monterio brought to the front was Sanctism, because Sanctism originated in Monterio. And this meant integration on a political level. Those same rogues who have formed their beliefs around their fear of the old world have now been forced to integrate into a new modern society where things are vastly different. But because they're older, they are given political positions of power. And because of their old world beliefs, they end up doing things like murdering children, or even worse, committing a genocide. Once these people got into power, they immediately started to shape the world how they would want. They started to dictate how magic would be used, and they started investing more in magic igniters and this being the right way to use magic out of the fear of what could go wrong if someone uses magic in a different way. And by obtaining the royal scepter via the tournament for the throne, they would have solidified their power. They would have had the entire kingdom relying on them, forcing their anxieties onto them, having power of the entire kingdom in their hand. But when Forden dies, which no one seems to really care about, their focus shifts from trying to control everything to just trying to survive. And it's impossible for an old world mentality to survive when there are people who are living, who are suffering under this old world rule that are challenging the system.